Hey, I'm live. Let me know if that's not loud enough. As always, gonna wait a couple of minutes. If you're not listening to this live, there's gonna be a thing down below to skip to where the video really starts. But right now, I'm gonna wait for people to come in. They usually come in the first few minutes. I need to find a better way to do this. Maybe start the video, have a timer, people hang out. I don't know. That's what a lot of people do, but I don't do it regularly enough. Just out here figuring it out. Yes. Once again, oh crap! I always forget. If you're on Twitter, move over to the YouTube, or don't. But if you want to comment, I think that's a good part of it. Move over to YouTube. I'm gonna drop that link below. That's one of the things I got to do, and then I'm gonna get going in a few minutes. I'm gonna drop the link in Twitter. Oh yeah, I always got to remember to put the banner up too. Who's in the chat? Anyone I know? Anybody? Oh, no one's in the chat. Sweet. That's all right. But on Twitter, so many things. I gotta get like a checklist. And there's always more people watching on Twitter. Okay, I'm dropping the YouTube link under Twitter. And I'm gonna get going. 3:55. Yeah, so what's up? Oh, can you guys hear me? Can someone tell me in the chat how my volume is? I should. You know what? I don't think that's loud enough. It's kind of far away, farther away than it normally is. I kind of redid my setup. Is that better? Okay. I'm just out here talking to myself. That's okay. I could talk to myself. What I'd be doing anyway. Alrighty. So what we're talking about, yeah, this is Gunung Padang. I'm gonna pull up some pictures before we get going. This is a massive pyramid. The guy, so like it's being talked about by a number of people. It's an Indonesian archaeologist, and he's been talking to Graham Hancock. You know, they do not like Graham Hancock. They are really not a fan of that dude. Mainstream archaeologists, and of course, you guys know what side I'm on. I'm on the side of the non-mainstream. So like, I'm going to try to be objective, but obviously like my bias is towards wanting to believe Graham Hancock. And also the guy he's arguing with is a guy named oh, what's up, Nord? How you doing, brother? Big triangle. Yes, very big triangle, bigger than Giza. Although some people dispute whether it's really a pyramid or man-made rather. They dispute whether it is. And we got to look at the specific evidence. Some of these, like, I do like cultural anthropology stuff. I've done some actual archaeology, but like there's some advanced like forensic methods in this that I don't really understand. So we're gonna have to do our best here. It's not like I'm a professional. I'm not an anthropologist, but I call myself one. The blonde mummies of China. Yeah, I have heard of that. And I don't actually think that's that crazy. I haven't looked in the specifics of it, but there's multiple places where there's blonde hair. I mean, there's Australian Aborigines with red and blonde hair. It exists in Afghanistan, but I mean, we know why in Afghanistan. It's basically Aryans, but also movement of peoples. I mean, people groups have been moving a lot. There's like Greek or Roman stuff, or maybe both, all the way in like modern day China. Yeah. So I mean, this guy, they talk about Flint Dibble. Flint Dibble is a guy. Now here's a guy who has me banned or me blocked on Twitter. Because I was talking shit to him. But yeah, Flint Dibble, he's an archaeologist, and I don't like the way that he operates. I don't have a lot of respect for it. I'm not a fan of it. And they are he was supposed to debate. He had agreed to debate Graham Hancock on Joe Rogan, and another thing is Graham Hancock has, or not Graham Hancock, but what's that dude's name? Flint Dibble has cancer. And so, obviously this goes without saying, but I say it every time. Don't go harass Flint Dibble on my accord. Like the guy has me blocked. He doesn't want to hear from me. That's fine. Okay. I'm still going to talk about him because it's relevant to the content. But yeah. Anyone heard of this? Anyone in there but Nord? It's all right. Nord is counts as at least 2 or 3 men, I think. This is the kind of thing we're dealing with. And we got to go into the methods. Man, I hate Flip Dibble. Look at this. I mean, I think some of the I think if you're just joining, I'm just waiting a few minutes. Like the video, please. I'd appreciate it. We're gonna get started in just a few minutes. I let people like kind of come in. So 3:55, which is 4 minutes from now. Probably any minute now. I'm gonna start, but I'm just gonna research this. I'm gonna talk about it. Anyone have any thoughts on this already? Anyone heard of it? Gunung Padang. It's in Indonesia, and Indonesia is a very interesting place because as recently as tens of thousands or maybe slightly less than 10,000 years ago, there was a continent there in Indonesia. Like it's a whole thing. Like it's not Gondwana land. This is like an artist rendition of this. So like there was a much larger area here. Oh, I wasn't sharing this tab. Yeah, this type of thing. Okay, but we're gonna go over the paper first. Which I need to share. Xed out my tab. Okay, so I'm gonna start. I'm gonna drop this banner down. I'm gonna edit the time slot and in which is 7:32. This is the Indonesian archaeological paper. So this paper, I've heard. Okay, before we go, I've heard rumors that Chinese do not let outsiders investigate their giant pyramids. Yeah, the Chinese are very protective of their archaeology, which is really unfortunate because I've looked into the Chinese archaeological methods before, and it's definitely true that our archaeology is its own type of biased. But while I do criticize our archaeologists and academia in general, I do think, and it is biased, it's from my perspective, but that they do a better job than the Chinese at protecting cultural heritage. It seems like the Chinese have a more metaphorical understanding of the world. They don't have this like scientific method that was created. I mean, they have their own types of things like that, and of course, they do use the scientific method. But they also have their own very, very strong and very resilient culture, and that feeds in quite a bit to the point where they're not really, I would say, even trying to be objective. I might be misrepresenting them, and I hope I'm not, but it would be my perspective that the Chinese archaeologists would not, many of them would not view it as their goal to be objective. And I'm not sure how possible it is. It's even less possible than in ours to be objective, but it seems like they ignore certain things, play up other things, maybe destroy things, but a lot of people do. I don't know. Okay, so let's get started on Indonesia. We're talking about Indonesian step pyramids. Okay, so this is archaeological prospecting of Gunung Padang. We're going to go over the research of this. I've got a couple other articles. We're going to go into this one first, and I'm just going to see where it goes. So let me know what you think as we go. But I haven't read this even yet, so we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so geoarchaeological, and that means they're looking in the ground. They're using new methods like LiDAR, which are just being adapted to archaeology. There's always these these technologies that come out, and then archaeology gets them once it's cheap enough for them to use them, and they're created for other purposes. Like this type of technology, it's ground penetrating radar. It was created for like surveying and to save costs by seeing what's under the ground, but that has great archaeological applications. So as the cost has come down, it's become a method in archaeology. But the thing is that it is a very new method, so they're still working out the kinks of how it works. So I will say that immediately I am skeptical of the aging techniques, but that's why we're going to go into the specifics, because guys like Flint Dibble, they just write in an article that it's BS. A lot of the times they don't address the actual evidence, or at least the best evidence, and they just call it done because an extra expert said no. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to go into the actual data and look at it. So this is going to take a while. And if you don't, I mean, that's why we're here. So if that's not for you, thumb down. If it is for you, thumb up. I would appreciate that. So the multidisciplinary study of Gunung Padang has revealed compelling evidence of a complex and sophisticated megalithic site. So a megalithic site, large stones, usually large anything. Correlations between rock stratifications, that's layers. You're talking about layers. Generally, almost always a layer below is considered older than one above it. That can, if there's a mudslide or something, that won't be true. Trenching and core logs. So they're like taking, like with ice, they do it with ice in the Arctic. They like go down, they like, they cut in and they take like a really deep piece, pull it out, and they see what's inside it. Combined with GPR facies. I don't know what a facie is, but I'm pretty sure that is the ground penetrating radar. ERT layers. We'll look into it when we get farther down. And seismic tomograms. This is like, again, these are more ground penetrating techniques. Demonstrate the presence of multi-layer constructions spanning approximately 20 to 30 meters, so in length. And the multi-layer constructions are very, very common for megalithic sites. You see these that time and time again, there are locations that people view as sacred that once they're conquered or someone else moves in or people leave, like those sites, people go back to them. They make new things. They use the old stuff. I mean, this is true of Stonehenge. It's true of Mecca. I mean, Mecca in the Islamic faith. I hope I'm not offending anybody, but it is. I think it's even understood in Islam to be a pre-Islamic object. It is. So notably, a high resistive anomaly in electric resistivity tomography aligns with a low velocity anomaly detected in seismic tomography, indicating the existence of hidden cavities or chambers within the site. So we're gonna have to look into that, but they say through their methods that there are like caves and places to go, chambers and cavities. Additionally, drilling operations revealed significant water loss, further supporting the presence of underground spaces. Significant water loss. So I guess they're saying that there's a place for the water to run to. Radiocarbon dating of organic soils from the structures uncovered multiple construction stages dating back thousands of years BC. You don't need to do that BC crap. This is with the initial phase dating to the Paleolithic era. So Paleolithic, that's the old Stone Age. These findings offer valuable insights into the constructive history of Gunung Padang, shedding light on the engineering capabilities of ancient civilizations during the Paleolithic era. Okay, so the problem with this, and I had seen this briefly in the other article, is that the radiocarbon dating of organic soils from the structures uncovered multiple construction stages. And these radiocarbon datings of the soils, they are dependent on they're dependent on them kind of getting it right, in the sense that they're sure that each layer is man-made, because there is a discussion over whether the structure itself is man-made. So we got to look at it, and like there's pictures, there's radar, so we'll see. So this is the site, Gunung Padang, West Java province, Indonesia. That's on. I used to live on that island. That's funny. I used to live in Indonesia. On this island, this is near the capital city of Jakarta. It's been the subject of comprehensive archaeological, geological, and geophysical studies. So early descriptions by Veerbeck, these are archaeologists, described it as an ancient cemetery on top of a mound. They would almost always just earlier archaeologists would just say that it's a cemetery, no matter what. They're just like, oh, it's a cemetery. When fifth and sixth grade is when I lived in Indonesia. But further investigation did not take place until local reports prompted government attention in 1979. The name Gunung Padang translates to Mountain of Enlightenment in the local language, and it's been used for religious rituals throughout history. And that makes sense. High points, they would either make the high points or they would already exist. And, high points are just sacred. So what we see here, let's see if I can pull it up. Yeah, so that's Jakarta, the capital city over here. Gunung Padang, this is the site. Villages are the squares, and then megalithic sites. This is common for them to be multiple locations. Okay, so we'll have to come back to this at some point probably, but these are showing these rocks that it's debatable whether they are actually whether they're natural or not, I think. These are the anomalies they're talking about. We're just going to move on. Okay, here we go. An aerial view of Gunung Padang taken from a helicopter, topography and site map generated from a detailed geodetic survey. Geology map of the Gunung Padang region. That's what C is. Okay. Provincial level cultural heritage site. I don't know if this is the best format to do. That's okay. We're doing it. We're going to try it. They're common in Indonesia, but not on the same scale. Yeah, so these things are common elsewhere, but not at this massive of a scale. While lacking radiocarbon dating, it was assumed that Gunung Padang was a prehistoric site built between several hundred and a couple thousand BC, following regional megalithic cultures in Asia. And the reason that this is really appealing to someone like Graham Hancock is because he wants, and I frankly I want to as well. He wants it to be real. That there was an ancient lost civilization that was more powerful, and then the idea is that these later mounds are maybe a loss of the culture over time, and they're trying to get back to it. I don't know. What do you guys think? So, situated in the southern mountainous ranges of West Java, near the headwater of the not going to do it. Gunung Padang is surrounded by other megalithic sites, and this is pretty normal. This is true of the This is true of Cahokia as well, which is the largest site of the Mississippi mound builders in North America. Okay. Indonesia's tropical climate, characterized by intense weathering and sedimentation processes combined with dense vegetation, has led to the burial and concealment of ancient cultural remains. This is the same thing that happens in the Amazon, where it's just so dense, like the jungle just grows over everything that they couldn't find them. And there's, even in Central America, this happened with these insane sites. So there's probably more stuff like this. I mean, there's almost definitely more stuff like this to be found in remote parts of the world that maybe were more accessible at an earlier time in history, whether it be through human technology or through the climate being different at the time. So what's up, Cinder? Pyramid cells seethe. Giga ziggurat shall rise again. Yeah, dude. It should. I agree with you. But I mean, it's possible that ziggurat's just built on top of an old pyramid. That's like a lot of these locations are places that that have been important for different cultures over a long period of time. Like the video, please. If you haven't, I would appreciate it if you like the content. So these Further, Indonesia's archipelago has undergone drastic climatic changes over the past 15,000 years, resulting in rising sea levels and submerging ancient land known as Sundaland. These dynamic natural processes have caused the disappearance of numerous ancient heritage sites in forests, underwater, and buried underground. And this is true. I mean, there's archaeological evidence for the sea levels being much lower. I think it was during the last ice age. and the landmass was one giant landmass. Now it's a still giant archipelago. I mean, the archipelago itself is like almost as large as the United States. It looks smaller on a map only because when we look at a map, it's around the equator, and that's generally on most maps where they shrink them down. So 2011 to 2014, multiple seasons, mapping. They got all this stuff. So the methods. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna skim through the rest of the article while we go. So these are different methods that they did: the core drilling, the radiocarbon analysis. I want to look into this because we have to we got to look at the other thing too, but we got to confirm that it's like human. That has to be convinced. That was wild in World War II when their Truman's reconquered the Sundaland. Yes, God, that's an alternative history video waiting to happen. Is them in the Sundaland. Love that. Okay, ERT surveys, substructure, ST surveys. This is just going right over my head, most of it. The Gunung Padang megalithic site consists of stone terrace cascading northward, occupying the elongated flat top of the hill, which rises 200 meters above the main river in the north, or around 100 meters above the entrance gate in the parking lot, where a stone stairway leads to the top. Okay, so my thumbnail is super misleading, but oh well, that's fine. Let's see. So this is what the site looks like. And the idea, I have to remember, but it seems like some of these, somebody was trying to argue that some of these are natural. Flint Dibble was maybe trying to argue that. And I think that that's very unlikely based on like how they're growing. Surface exposures of Mesolithic stones, illustrating 2 units of construction. A comparative example of stone terraces. Another one, a step pyramid close to Gunung Padang, which shares a similar size and antiquity, but has not been extensively studied. Another example, Central Java. There's less funding out in these places. It's crazy they were able to get LiDAR out there. So it's like, it's easy to argue about it right now because there's so much ambiguity, but there's not enough yet. But it's very possible when we do get more information that, maybe it's a whole big nothing burger. Multi-phase construction and hidden layers. So this is probably where they get down to these things being arguable, whether they're really a human site or not. Okay. So this is good. So I'm just going to look at this figure for a second. So this right here is this shows the structure, right? So this is eroded, and this is a, basically Microsoft Paint level diagram, but good enough. It shows, the top layer, the soil, intensively weathered layer 2. And usually with stratification in archaeology, when you're looking at these layers, it's considered that the ones on the bottom are almost always older. Lower means older, lower down. So the farther you dig, the less, the farther down you dig, the older things are considered to be. And this is layer 2, artificial stacks of columnar rock fragments with lengths up to 1 meters, filled with fine-grained matrices in between. Shows moderate spheroidal weathering. So they are saying that this is number 2, layer number 2, which is right here, and they're saying that these are artificial stacks, as in they've been made by humans. And then here, this is the 3rd layer at the bottom, 3A here, 3B here. So I guess this is the column. Very weathered rock mass, clay to silt grains with unidentified volcanic rock gravels. Layer 3B, which is this bottom one, and it looks like it's being portrayed as it's like a tower sticking up. Rock mass consists of very weathered columnar rocks showing intensive spheroidal weathering, leaving rounded columnar rocks. It forms vertical pillar shape. Okay, and then number 2 over here, this is showing layer number 2 in a different spot. Usually rocks are not this shoved together if they are natural. There's always arguments about whether a rock or a stone or anything got somewhere natural as opposed to it getting somewhere through like glacial activity. This is a very, very common argument that's had in anthropology. Unfortunately, it's a pretty it's something that has so much ambiguity that you can kind of just keep arguing it. So it becomes circular and it becomes whoever it's whatever your politics come down to essentially a lot of the time if it's that because you can argue it either way. So the spheroidal weathering is like it's rounding it down over time and this is going to indicate on different rocks a different age, but this is an imperfect method or a different amount of weathering, but this is imperfect and it's going to be argued about by geologists, not by anthropologists. So this is one of those interdisciplinary things that I don't really know very much about. But the most interesting one is at the bottom because they're going to tell us how old this thing is. What do you guys think looking at this? Has anyone ever looked at something like this? I mean, I've done archaeology before. I've done several different digs. So I don't so I look at this and I'm like I kind of know what I'm looking at, but this might be foreign to you if you've never seen this before. I wonder if they have some of their actual like reports in here. So the beta 2 scrap, beta 2 cliff exposure on the west slope. So field photo and interpreted stratigraphy of the subsurface layers. Side view B is the side view. It's just re-explaining the other thing. Okay, so the trenching. Now the trenching is when they take a okay, I'm just going to read this. The trenching excavations were conducted at 12 selected sites. Figure 1BD. Oh, went all the way up. I got to scroll all the way back down to trenching. Um, results of trenching. Okay, so what we're looking at here. Wait. Oh, trenching isn't what I thought it was. It's okay. It's amateur hour out here. I'm not an archaeologist. I'm not an anthropologist. I just call myself one. Yeah. Core samples and trenching, different things. So the trenching excavations were conducted at 12 selected sites, each with its designated name. These sites include Tango on T1, Alpha on the way, blah, 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 blah. This trenching excavation revealed that Unit 2 is a substantial construction that extends vertically and laterally along the west and east flanks. Okay, west and east flanks. Soil. So they're saying columnar rock. They're saying that these are man-made. I think other people might disagree. We're going to read the next article next and see what Flint Dibble and his gang of mainstream dicks has to say about this. Sorry, I don't need to be doing that. Not what I want to be out here doing. How does this fake ziggurat compare to the fake ziggurat in Antarctica? I'm not sure what you're talking about in Antarctica. I'll have to look up. I'll have to look up that one. But that's real. Antarctica is where humans come from, and we're going to find evidence of it as soon as we can get out there. That's what we're going to do. The layer of columnar rock dips at angles at about 15 degrees on the east and west slopes, inclined 30 degrees. I don't know if that means anything. Geometry of Unit 2 is complex. I'm just trying to get a decent idea of what's going on here so that we can then see what Flint Dibble says and what Diane Lewis, who's this reporter, says about it. So then we can come back and evaluate their claims after we evaluate these claims. So they're not making, I think they might do it at the end, but they're not making a lot of direct claims here. So let's see the core drilling, though. The core drilling were conducted at 7 selected sites around the hilltop with varying depths. The deepest core drilling, GP5 on T5, reached 36 meters. So 36 meters down. I don't know how old they're going to say that is, but that's very, very far down. You're not going to go that far down with doing regular archaeology. That's crazy. You go down 10 centimeters at a time. So that would be like 360 layers. That would take you months, year. The drillings penetrated Unit 1, Unit 2A, and Unit 3, as well as a deeper section composed of massive basaltic and andesite rocks referred to as Unit 4, the characteristics of each rock. Okay. So table 1. This is not even in enough focus for me, so I know you guys can't see it. Oof. Let's see if we can open this in a new tab. Oh, gosh. They're really going to do us like that, are they? Open in figure viewer. Wow, that's not helping. Okay, let's give it a try. No, this is really bad. Oh, Indonesians, huh? You guys. I'm supposed to evaluate this. No one ever goes in and actually looks. Like this. Isn't this stupid? Come on. Am I crazy here that this doesn't make sense that it would have such low resolution? You can't even read it? Okay. Gotta reshare my screen. All right. Oh well. Figure 5. Is it gonna be the same thing? Kind of. Okay. I kind of get the point. Are they claiming on this chart how old these things are, though? I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay, this is better. So, the classification of rock units based on comprehensive analysis and interpretation of the collected data obtained from boreholes. Those are when they go bore down. Trenches and surface exposures. Okay, so there is different layers, and remember, as you go lower, you generally get older. So dark brown soils, many columnar rocks, fragments encountered in GP1. Superficial megalithic stone and underlying topsoil, dark brown with many grass roots, and frequently contains many broken columnar rock fragments. We're going lower. See how low it goes. Goes down to unit 4. Okay, so identified in the core, horizontal columnar rocks, intercalated, that's a word, with fine-grained mortar. Identified mortar, so they're being like what? Concrete? Identified in the chords as rock fragments bounded by planar surface, so a flat surface, and intercalated by mortar or soil, so I guess connected. Rock core lengths are generally, I got to Google that word, but rock core lengths are generally 20 to 30 centimeters, not present in GP 2, 4, and 5. Okay, share this tab instead. Intercalated, inserted between layers in a crystal lattice. So they have been inserted. Interesting. That sounds kind of suggestive. Okay, so intercalated. That's what that means. Back to it. Okay, so ancient soil fill. So, oh no, above that. So thick soils below this layer. This is the rock fragmented, bounded by planar surface, flat surface. So this sounds like it's pretty clearly human designed. Then we have thick soil, often mark the bottom. Thick soils often mark the bottom of Unit 2, sometimes containing loose gravelly soils, angular grains, quartz, feldspar, and some clays. So this is a soil base. And I think when they're saying soil base here versus ancient soil fill, they're saying that this one is probably more natural, whereas this one is, they're implying that it is a human based fill, like somebody filled it in. Thick soil fills, bearing unit 3 beneath T5, and this is up to 7 meters. This is up to 7 meters down, which is a pretty deep fill. Thick soil fills bearing unit 3 beneath T5, showing some layering of brown, reddish orange, and yellow brown soils, some remnant of very weathered andesites, and lack of organic matter encountered in GP. So nothing alive and very weathered andesites. I don't know anything about how andesites weather. Weathered columnar and rounded rock fragments showing spheroidal weathering, intercalated with soils or weathered materials, generally 15 to 30 centimeters long, up to 1.3. Okay. Massive basaltic andesite rocks. This is the very, very bottom. This is the very, very bottom. Not known how thick it is. I guess they didn't go to the bottom. And I guess there's, in this, they're saying there's a lot of water loss. And this would be a human layer. They're saying massive basaltic andesite rock. So massive. What does that mean? Oh, okay. Now they talk about it. Unit 1 is the topsoil, less than 1 meter thick. It's got fragmented columnar rocks, column rocks, up rocks. Unit 2 is it can be seen both on the ground surface and in the trenches. It consists of columnar basaltic andesite rocks held together by sandy silt mortar of anthropogenic origin. So this is human origin. So these are column rocks that are held together by mortar. The individual cores of the columnar rocks have smooth planar surfaces and typically measure between 20 and 30 centimeters length, representing their typical diameter. The base of Unit 2, there's a relatively thick layer of soil, occasionally containing loose gravelly sands. Okay. So Unit 3 shares similarities with Unit 2, but is considered more weathered, often showing signs of water circulation loss during drilling. The cores can exceed 30 centimeters, so they're using larger rocks, reaching up to 1.3 meters, suggesting the presence of columnar rocks in oblique or vertical positions. So oblique, like to the side, or vertical positions. So they're saying that these are showing rocks, like meter-long rocks that are in vertical position, which implies that they're human origin, that they're created by humans, put there by humans. Unit 3 also contains rounded rock fragments referred to as number 3C. The boundary between weathered columnar rocks and rounded rocks in Unit 3 remains unclear. Unit 4 is not exposed on the ground surface and consists of massive andesite rocks. I think this is the one that's below the the soil fills with intensive fractures. So they're talking about big rocks, some of them breaking. The characteristic was observed in GP1, GP3, GP5, GP6, and GP7 boreholes. Those are the core samples they took. The rocks in Unit 4 are generally in a fresh state, or exhibit minimal weathering. Okay. So that's odd. That would mean that they didn't have a lot of natural weathering. I mean, weathering is the word. The rocks in Unit 4 are generally in a fresh state or exhibit minimal weathering. In GP1, the top of Unit 4 is identified by a heavily weathered 2-meter high basaltic andesitic rock associated with fluctuations in groundwater levels evident through water inflow during drilling. 2 distinctive soil fills were encountered. The first type, referred to as ancient soil fills, was found at GP5 and GP2 and exposed in Echo 1 and Echo 2 trenches. A thickness of up to 7 meters and completely bury Unit 3, indicating no gradual in situ weathering. So what that means is that they're saying that over the time that they were buried in place, there wasn't any weathering that was done as the soil came in and buried them over time. So that would indicate that this is human in origin. That would indicate that it is that it was buried on purpose and suddenly while it was still fresh. It's like when an anthropologist or a forensic archaeologist would look at a broken bone from an archaeological dig, and they can tell whether it had time to heal or whether someone died with that broken bone based on how the bone healed, or how much healing has been done. Question. So since Gunung Padang is a volcanic area, isn't it possible the changes in density, weathering, and the chambers are just natural? Do you think they are just fitting data into their narrative? Okay, so it's a volcanic area. So it being a volcanic area, in the sense that there might be an eruption, you would be able to tell that type of rock. So you wouldn't have a soil fill on if there was a volcanic eruption. It would look different. Or if it had been turned into soil over a long period of time, you would see evidence of that being an eruption. I don't know how the volcano. I don't know when it's supposed to have last erupted, so I don't really know. Are there any confirmed natural volcanoes that exhibit similar chambers? Okay, we're gonna have to look into the chambers. So because I see what you guys are saying now, because it's like they could be natural. Oh, I gotta switch my. I'm gonna get a you know I'm gonna get one of those things called like AC power. All right. Okay, let's see. I'm just gonna Google Gunung Padang volcano. Throw your ideas at me, guys, because I need help here. I don't know what everyone else's background is, but a lot of this is interdisciplinary, and I don't even have a background in some technical aspects of archaeology. Okay, so the idea. Mm, okay, we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this. I got this article shared up. So I'm gonna go back to the first article. The ziggurat wall power versus the pyramid lithium battery. Yes, I love the battery idea. Okay. So two distinctive soil fills were encountered. The sharp contact between the soil fills and the top of Unit 3 suggests their human origin rather than natural soil formations. They're saying both of them. A thickness of up to 7 meters is crazy. But I think they're also implying, and they might get into this later with like the fracturing, that this was destroyed. Like this is a very common thing in history where like people, I mean, it happens even today, like ISIS doing this. Like they'll destroy effigies of old gods and they'll destroy the city in general. So even if it's just a wall, they'll knock it over. Um Okay, so drilling initially took place at GP2 to a depth of 15 meters. However, further excavation was carried out at this site, referred to as Echo Wonder. Okay, I'm gonna go faster and just see. Oh my god, I gotta look up. Oh, it's just like one result. Okay. Oh my god, I'm not familiar with these methods. So, oh, it's the same thing that they had before. So, tunnel question mark. These are radio frequency anomalies, lava. So we are dealing with lava. Jeez, this is a lot of stuff. I'm trying to go down to the bottom to see if there's a conclusion. Okay. So here we're getting into the conclusion. So this is the main claim. Gunung Padang is a multi-layered prehistoric pyramid. It is a intense claim, quite intense claim. Um, This study strongly suggests that Gunung Padang is not a natural hill built, but a pyramid like construction. The pyramid's core consists of meticulously sculpted andesite lava. Okay, so sculpted. Unit 4. This is something that you would be able to tell in you should be able to tell whether it's like human or natural. Enveloped by layers of rock constructions. Okay, so unit 4 is the oldest one. Oops, do that in a different color. The carbon dating analysis further supports the multi-layer construction's long history spanning successive pyramids. The oldest construction, Unit 4, this is the one that's on the bottom in stratification, likely originated as a natural lava hill. Okay, so it originated as a natural lava hill. That's the claim. The oldest construction before being sculpted and then architecturally enveloped during the last glacial period between 25,000 and 14,000 BC. So this is again implying human contact. Sculpted and then architecturally enveloped during the last glacial period. Okay. We don't do BCE here, we do BC. Okay. Anyone, if you're in the chat and you like BCE over BC, then, make yourself known so that we can do totally to legal example. Afterward, Gunung Padang was abandoned by the first builders for thousands of years, leading to a significant weathering. Before Christ era. Yep, that's what BCE is, before Christ era. Okay, so Unit 4 originated as a natural hill sculpted and then architecturally enveloped. That just means that they poured soil all over the top of it. Somebody came in and filled it in. That's their claim during the last glacial period. Afterward, Gunung Padang was abandoned by the first builders for thousands of years, leading to significant weathering. So this is weathering off of the soil fill around 7900 to 6100 before Christ's era. Unit 3 was deliberately buried with substantial soil fills. Approximately a millennium later, a subsequent builder arrived at Gunung Padang and constructed Unit 2. Oh, we have a diagram. Fantastic. Love books with pictures. Okay. Unit 1. This is the one that's at the very top. This is the one that you can kind of see in the picture here. Unit 2 is mostly buried, but some of it is exposed. It kind of comes down to here, it looks like. This is somewhat topographic. Then we go to Unit 3. And what? Okay, so here's how they get into it. Unit 3, depth 5 to 30 meters. Are they showing a cross section here? So this is 30 meters down right here. Massive andesite. So they show Unit 3 in green, Unit 4 in red. And is this supposed to be like a core drill that's going down right here? I don't understand. But they're saying Unit 4, which here is on the bottom, was natural but has been sculpted. So there's evidence that it's been sculpted. Okay. Okay, and the final builders built to 1100. During construction of Unit 1, Unit 2 likely remained relatively intact and well preserved. However, in a peculiar turn of events, Unit 2 was subsequently buried, possibly to conceal its true identity for preservation purposes. So as a result, Unit 2 now lies concealed beneath Unit 1, which comprises simple superficial stone terraces, or Punden Burundak, representing the latest visible manifestation of Gunung Padang. So they're saying that Unit 1 and 2 used to exist together, and then it was either deliberately or accidentally covered. Concluding remarks. This study sheds light on advanced masonry skills dating back to the last glacial period. This finding challenges the conventional belief that human civilization and the development of advanced construction techniques emerged only during the warm period of the early Holocene or the beginning of the Neolithic, with the advent of agriculture approximately 11,000 years ago. Harari. Is he citing? He's citing Yuval Noah Harari here. I guess that's fine. It's a little odd, but that's okay. However, evidence from Gunung Padang, only because it's like a pop anthropology book, which is fine, but I don't have a problem with it, but you'd think he would. Whatever. However, evidence from Gunung Padang and other sites, such as Göbekli Tepe, suggests that advanced construction practices were already present when agriculture had perhaps not yet been invented. The builders of Unit 3 and 2 at Gunung Padang must have possessed remarkable masonry capabilities which do not align with traditional hunter-gatherer cultures. So we don't really know. It's generally thought of as this, but there's been challenges to that recently. The burial of these structures around 9,000 years ago adds further intrigue for reasons not fully understood. Given the long and continuous occupation of Gunung Padang, it is reasonable to speculate that this site held significant importance, attracting ancient people to repeatedly occupy and modify it. Yeah, I mean, that's to further advance our knowledge of yeah, let me get a kill in the chat. Let's do that. Kill in the chat. It won't let me type kill in the chat. Can I not type the word kill? Oh, let me do it this time. Okay. Employing advanced geophysical imaging techniques and directional drilling can prove instrumental in exploring underground structures, including potential chambers. In the event of encountering a chamber during drilling operations, the use of downhole cameras can provide valuable visual documentation. Furthermore, conducting more extensive radiometric dating studies will contribute to obtaining precise age estimates for the constructions, enhancing our understanding of their historical timelines. Okay. Okay. Let's go up. Let's go to the next one just for a moment. Okay. Actually, give me 5 minutes. I'm gonna go use the bathroom and fill up my water. And you guys, you know, d- do whatever you want, but talk amongst yourselves if you'd like. Let me know what you think when I get back, or go do your own thing. I'll be right back. I was hungry, so I made a little rice. Just some of that Uncle Ben's, although they took Uncle Ben from us like it's Spider-Man or something. What kind of rice do you guys like? I really fuck with that basmati. That's some good shit. It's not what I got. I got jasmine today, left over from my ex-girlfriend, leaving it in the cupboard. So it's that type kind of rice, which is yeah, it's fine. Got some rice. Okay, I see. I got a lot of comments here. Holy crap. Okay, hey guys. Sick. So I'll go over these and then I'll start the next one. Let me edit the. What is up, Mike? So it's funny seeing you on the other end of the stream the other day when what was that? Oron McIntyre. Or something. I think it was Oron McIntyre with the guy, Finders Keepers. Long grain brown. Oh yeah, see, you're healthier than I am, man. I'm eating that just white stuff. Just well, I shouldn't say it like that. You know what? Just some white jasmine rice with salt, pepper, and butter on it because I love being white. White. Um. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Prudentialist and Aaron. Yeah, I've been on Prudentialist. I don't think Oron likes me very much. That's okay. He probably just doesn't know I exist, but yeah. Oh yeah, that's what we do around here. We're just out here being white, enjoying being white. Except in my case, you know, anybody else, whatever, but you know, not feeling negatively towards other races, but also liking being white. But yeah, let's go. 27,000-year-old pyramid. So let's go to this other one. And this one, fortunately, is not the, you know, it's not all dense and scientific. This is just an article in Nature, which is a scientific magazine, but it's a scientific journal. But I think this is like this is a news article from there. In fact, it says news right there. So the massive buried structures at Gunung Padang in Indonesia would be much older than Egypt's Great Pyramids if they're even human constructions at all. So I guess what that tells me is that this argument, and let me just type in the chat that we're starting. Nature article. So I guess this rests on the massive buried structures at Gunung Padang in Indonesia would be much older than Egypt's Great Pyramid if they're even human construction at all, built by gorillas. They might be. I mean, they were pretty big rocks. So I don't know. Humans probably couldn't carry those. I bet they brought the gorillas in. The gorillas did it. And so but what that tells me is that there is agreement that they're old as long as they can be confirmed to be human. So this right here is the surface level structure that we were talking about in the other article, right? So this is the surface level stuff. These are the columnar stones that they're talking about. This is clearly human construction based on the square or the rectangular shape. So a headline grabbing paper. They're literally talking about the paper that we just read. This is where I found it. Claiming that a structure in Indonesia is the oldest pyramid in the world has raised eyebrows of some archaeologists and has now prompted an investigation by the journal that published it. Nature has learned. So they're saying they've learned. It has now prompted investigation by the journal that published it. Okay, so there's an investigation out on it. That could be nothing. The paper, Archaeological Prospection on 20th October, headlines around the world. That's what you got to do, bro. You got to come out and just be like, you know what? Females evolved to be hunters. I'm claiming it. It'll get headlines. That was a different story. Maybe I should do a video on that. I did a really, it got like 150,000 impressions. Distracted. I digress. That would make it much older than the first colossal Egyptian pyramid, the 4,600-year-old pyramid of, yeah, it's probably older than that too. It would also mean it predates the oldest known megalithic site, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which was built by stonemasons around 11,000 years ago. It would completely rewrite what is known about human civilization in the area. Yeah. Lemuria? What the hell is Lemuria? Yeah, some secrets are best. What is Lemuria? Someone tell me what that is. I have no idea. The pyramid has become a symbol of advanced civilization. It's not easy to build pyramids. You need high masonry skills. Okay. I'm surprised the paper was published as is, says Flint Dibble. Flint Dibble, who has me blocked on Twitter, is out here talking to Nature. But like, look, the thing is, it's like, Flint Dibble is literally somebody who has called. I'm 98% sure he's one of them. A lot of archaeologists have called Graham Hancock racist. I think Flint Dibble is one of them. I'm almost positive. And that's like, I mean, this would be the time to actually call him racist because he's like, oh, yeah, no, these Indonesian archaeologists don't know what they're doing. Like, it's not racist to say that, but he would claim it is because he claimed that Graham is racist for not accepting the academic mainstream's perception of the pyramids. I'm surprised the paper was published as is, says Flint Dibble. Although the paper presents legitimate data, he says its conclusions about the site and its age are not justified. So let's see what he says. Gunung Padang, 5 stepstone terraces, which we talked about. I thought there was only 4. Built by lemurs. Okay, hell yeah. I'm in. There's a fun game called Timberborn where you play as beavers. That's fun. Retaining walls and Flint Dibble is the name. Connecting staircases that sit atop an extinct volcano. Okay. Between 2011 and 2014, colleagues investigated the site using several ground penetrating techniques to determine what lies beneath the terraces. 4 layers, which they conclude represent separate phases of construction. The innermost layer is a hardened lava core, which has been meticulously sculpted according to the paper. That is what they said. Subsequent layers of rocks arranged like bricks were built over the top of the oldest layer. Subsequent layers of rocks arranged like bricks were built over the top of the oldest layer. The layers were carbon dated using soil lodged between rocks obtained from a core drilled out of the hill. So the layers are carbon dated using the soil that was between the layers. Oh, that's dope. I don't know how I haven't heard of that. So further additions were made between 8,000 and 7,500 years ago, and the final leather. Okay, so this is unit 1, 2, 3, and 4, like we talked about before. Dibble says there's no clear evidence that the buried layers were built by humans and were not the result of natural weathering and the movement of rocks over time. Oh my God. Hi, JC. You were debunked. Okay. I am paying attention. All right. Dibble. Okay. Material. Okay. And we're not the result of natural weathering and the movement of rocks over time. Material rolling down a hill is going to, on average, orient itself. It says the column-shaped stones were too large and orderly to simply have rolled there. So we'll have to go back. And look at the construction to make our own thing. Oh my God. Hi, JC. Again. The neatly arranged, shaped, and massive nature of these rocks, some weighing up to 300 kilograms, dismisses the likelihood of transportation over significant distances. The authors also report finding a dagger-shaped stone. The object's regular geometry and distinct composition and its materials unrelated to the surrounding rocks signify its man-made origin. But Dibble says it's unlikely that the rock was shaped by humans. But he just says there's nothing to indicate that it's man-made. All right. Because Gunung Padang was constructed before the end of the last ice age, it shows that people from that time were capable of building complex structures, and this makes it a very interesting monument. Okay. Say hi to the lurkers. I want to get them out of their shells. Or not. It's up to them. But hello, please like the video. Thanks for joining us, guys. We're here talking about Gunung Padang, doing some archaeology. Normally do some cultural anthropology, but this is good too. Okay. But Bill Farley, an archaeologist at Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven, says the paper has not provided evidence that an advanced civilization existed during the last ice age. The 27,000-year-old soil samples from Gunung Padang, although accurately dated, do not carry hallmarks of human activity such as charcoal or bone fragments, he says. Archaeological records show that the transition from hunter-gatherer societies to complex societies occupying large settlements occurred after the commencement of the Holocene. Okay, so they're not even including. Have since launched an investigation into the paper. Eileen Ernenvine, an archaeological geophysicist at Tennessee State University in Johnson City. The editors, including me and Wiley ethics team, are currently investigating this paper in accordance with Committee on Publication Ethics Guidelines. Okay. Well, number one, I'm gonna look up this Bill Farley dude. Let's see what Bill Farley's background is. Bill freaking Farley. Who are you, man? Former CEO of Fruit of the Loom. That's probably not him. That'd be weird. Associate professor. Okay. Oh, is this him too? Oh God. This guy. Bill Farley, everyone. Bill Farley. This is him. Bill Farley. Let's see what his Twitter says. He, him. Education. YouTube, labor, and politics. Views my own. I bet Flint Dibble follows this guy. Okay. Oof. this Sarah Lacey, this is the woman who I wrote that massive thread like debunking her article, but she followed me back and I didn't tag her in the thing because I didn't want people to harass her. But yeah, these people don't like me if they know about me. Chris Farley's gay son, question mark. Good question, JC. I'm not sure. Probably not. Peak reaction face here. This stuff doesn't work, by the way. Like you're not supposed to. I mean, I guess it would work in this case. I'll be live at 8:30 Eastern playing Civilization 6. Well, let's see his YouTube. Oh, it hasn't even happened yet. Oh. Is the oldest pyramid. Oh, he's got a whole video on it. Okay. Maybe we could even watch that. Sweet. Glad I clicked on this. And this guy's near me. Oh, you know what? He looks like, in that other image. Dang, dude, what's he doing? Okay, look at this guy here. Look at him here. And then why would you choose to make this your profile picture if you look like this? Am I crazy here? Like, isn't he making himself look like just is he trying to give off like less masculine vibes? Why would you do that, bro? Okay. I digress. Get back to it. Where am I clicking this? Oh, Lee Moria, you're sharing stuff with me on Twitter. Okay, sick. Yeah, this is awesome. This is what I want to be real for fully. Okay. So the soil samples, so no one's debating whether the soil samples are accurate. They're just debating whether so he's saying that the soil samples don't carry hallmarks of human activity. Such as charcoal or bone fragments, he said, but that doesn't that's not evidence because it was saying it was soil fill. So it wasn't like lived in soil. And if it wasn't taken from like a human trash heap or something, then it wouldn't have it in it. They could have taken it from a fresh spot. They would in fact need a lot of soil because it's 7 meters deep over a large area. So it would be a lot of soil. I mean, 7 meters deep, 21 feet, it's around that. It's not exactly that, but like, so that's like a square. Oh my God. No, it's a lot. It's metric tons of soil. So that doesn't matter. It seems like it's based on whether the bottom layer, let's go back to this paper, whether the bottom layer is human. Part of which argument that it's a ancient cemetery? They think everything's a cemetery. It's crazy. Okay, so we need the evidence of whether so this is the pyramid, right? Or supposed pyramid. This is unit 4 here. So unit 4 represents the sculpted. So this is this is the part they're arguing about. I think part of that argument comes from the claim that it's an ancient cemetery, the bone fragments not being in soil. Yeah, so what he's also talking about, you would have like of animals that they ate, there would be evidence of like pieces, maybe not of human bone, but of like animal bone. Um so sculpted is what they're arguing about. They're arguing about whether like both of them thinks that it's natural, but the Indonesians think that these Indonesians, these particular Indonesians, think that it is, and Graham Hancock think that it was sculpted. So that's what we need to figure out looking at this data. So let's control F for all mentions of Unit 4. Generally fresh rocks and manufacturers. So like them not being them see, this is what's so weird because like them not being weathered at all shows that they were freshly covered. So if there's no weathering like natural or human caused, they're generally in a fresh state or exhibit minimal weathering. How else would this have happened? Like, could it be a landslide or something? But wouldn't I feel like there would be specific, like there would be markers. They would have talked about it, how the soil would look if it's at a landslide, and it's also like landslide from where. Um. Okay. Ancient soil fills. Okay. So here we got ancient soil fill and number 2 soil base. So this is unit 3. Damn, are they debating whether unit 3? Are they debating whether unit 3 is or unit 4? Like are they in agreement on unit 3 at least? I'm not sure. Let's go back. Do they even oops, that's not good. They don't call them by their unit numbers here. Okay. The 27,000-year-old soil sample. So when they're talking there, they're talking about the unit 4. Unit 4. Okay. Okay, here we go. This is the no, it's not. Oh, these are the samples. Okay. These are the different samples they took. Um okay, we didn't look at this before. This is good too. So here Lemuria is a what? No one? Modern soil vegetation, unit 1, time gap, unit 2. So ancient soil fill, unit 2 is only in certain places, ancient soil fill in other places, time gap, unit 3. Okay. Okay, so down here is the time period. Soil fill, common Christ era. This is 1393 to 1499 Christ era. That's the soil fill at the top. Unit 1 is modern to long time ago. There's a time gap of several thousand years. Unit 2. Okay. 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 So unit 4 is the lava. Unit 3 is what they're saying, what they're arguing about. This is 11,000 years of it being used. And then time gap 1, it's like forever. And then there's a soil fill. Wait. Time gap 1 and then soil fill? Or are these both supposed to be soil fills? We'll look into it more. What the hell do you guys think? Is there something I'm missing? Tunnel question mark. I love that. JC. Okay. Oh, a time gap between the two soil layers. Okay, so the oldest construction, Unit 4, likely originated as a natural law hill before being sculpted and then architecturally enveloped during the last. And they call the and they call the natural or the sculpting of it Unit 3. So Unit 4 is the natural base. Unit 3 is on top of that. So we have to look at Unit 3. Not Unit 4. Unit 3. Oops. Keep doing that. Let's look at Unit 3 again. Unit 3 dates back. Oh my God. Hi, Jay Forte. Thanks, JC, for being you. Huh. Okay. You know what? I think it's time for us to watch Homeboy's video on this. Unless it's totally obnoxious, we'll see.
The saddest of the cats from Broadway musicals Cats. I can't believe still they actually made that into a movie. It was really bad. Hey, we're going to be talking about a new paper.
You guys hear this volume okay?
In the Journal of, hold on, I'm taking a look at it because interestingly, this was not a journal I was super familiar with, but I have been assured by friends that it is an important journal in other places around the world. The journal.
He was assured. Yeah, Cats reference. Yeah, seriously. He was assured by friends in other parts of the world that the journal is reputable. That's how, just so we're clear, that is his opening idea about how he evaluates information. These people, these freaking people, man. That just annoys me.
It's called Archaeological Prospecting. As with other discussions we've had about papers, this is going to be relevant because actually the venue of a paper, where it's published, and is actually really important for understanding the context of it. So we're going to be talking about this paper. It's called Geoarchaeological Prospecting of Gunung Padang, buried prehistoric pyramid in West Java, Indonesia. So this site has been sort of making the rounds, and this paper's been making the rounds in mainstream media coverage, as well as on places like Twitter and social media. A lot of archaeologists have weighed in. So one of those archaeologists was me. So I wanted to come out here and say something here in video format and kind of flesh out my thoughts on this paper and the problems with it. Now, I don't believe in clickbait, yet I've used a clickbait title here for this video. So assuming you're watching it when it's relatively new and I haven't changed it, the title's something like, is there a 20,000-year-old pyramid in Indonesia? And so I'll upfront say the answer is no, there's not. So that's my conclusion. That's my final statement on this. The TLDR version, if you'd like. But let me get into why I think that's the case and why that seems to be something that just about every archaeologist and geologist that I know, and I know quite a few of those, seems to agree with me about. Now, the first thing to note is I mentioned the...
Once again, okay. He literally, why are you citing your friends? Why are you doing that? This is why anthropology and archaeology are such, and academia in general, are such like bad fields for actually having a dissenting opinion, because there's politics involved in this. If you believe the wrong thing, you can lose on your career. Seriously.
Journal. Now this shows up in
this is how he's showing up front how he evaluates information. Listen to people when they tell you who they are.
Archaeological prospecting, which is is not a sham journal. This is a real peer-reviewed journal. They publish real
Evidenced by
research,
his friends.
and it seems at first glance to be a pretty good fit for this paper because it's not a straightforward archaeology journal, and it's not a straight geology journal. It's about stuff that kind of falls in between those, usually using, as the name of the journal suggests, using archaeological prospecting techniques. That is things like ground penetrating radar, electromagnetic resistivity, LIDAR. Many of these tools are going to get discussed in this paper. So it seems like a pretty good fit. So the problem isn't so much the selection of this journal, but the fact that this paper absolutely, in no uncertain terms whatsoever, ever should have gotten through peer review. And the fact that an editor published this is actually malfeasance. It's malpractice, frankly. Now, I
Always so extreme, dude.
can say that because I am actually a journal editor myself. I don't need to be a
I can say that. I'm qualified. I have the official designation.
journal editor to say something like that. I edit a small regional
Did he just say
focused
that was
journal.
a joke, what he did? Okay.
It's quite
Now I'm an
specific
asshole.
to a specific type of archaeology and a specific time period and place. And it's entirely volunteer based. I don't get paid for it. The peer reviewers don't get paid for it. The editorial board doesn't get paid for it. It's all just sort of service that we do for the good of our scholarship and the scholarship of our region and our area. And so I don't. I understand that there's limitations to what journals can do, what editors can do, and I understand that sometimes folks will submit papers to a journal that can kind of squeeze through. But this paper has enormous problems, many of them, and not just the fact that the big problem that I'm going to get to later, which is they draw a conclusion that does not follow logically from anything else in the paper, the methodology used, the data recovered, etc. That's the big criticism. That's really its biggest problem. But it also has other problems, as some have pointed out. This paper and these authors are associated with nationalist movements, that the research might have been biased based on a desire to drum up tourism to a particular region, and those sorts of questions. Things I'm not going to get into so much today.
Okay. So I like that he brings this up because this is one of those incentive things, right? Like, I hope that he acknowledges, I don't think he will, but I hope that he acknowledges his own bias and the biases of people like Flint Dibble and of like the greater anthropology who have a vested interest in this theory being incorrect. But he is correct that it makes sense that this would be wrapped up in nationalist movements in Indonesia. Is he a lefty? I don't know if he's a lefty. He's probably either a lefty or not very political, but he's a lefty in the sense that he's a technocrat.
Today, because I want to focus in on kind of the problems with the paper.
I mean, this
and that
guy's
is
an
the
actual anthropologist. Like, he's a
external
professor.
Context. So problem number one with this paper, I would say that's really obvious right from the beginning, is its use of language. Now, that is, I don't want to overly restrict people within the scientific community from writing in a way that's engaging, inviting, and open.
Okay. What's up, Anthony? He talks about language, but these guys are Indonesian. They're not speaking English as a first language.
That stuff's great. I'm actually a huge advocate for that. That is not what's happening in this paper. When I say that the writing is not typical for an academic paper, that's not what I mean. What instead I'm saying is that this paper is written very specifically using persuasive language. So you might remember from high school.
I say this every time that I'm reacting to a mainstream archaeologist. They always start with an abstract argument. Just talk about the details, dude. Please. I'm gonna skip this part. I don't care. It's an abstract argument. I just want to talk about the data. I want to talk about the results.
I want to say, before I go on to say a lot of the things that I think are very bad about this paper, one thing I appreciate and I actually think is good in this paper and that authors should always do, and some don't, even in so-called, quote unquote, good academic writing, is that the paper is very measured in its validity. So it has sections that say, all right, here were the limitations of the techniques we were using. Here's the problems we ran into. Here's where there's potential, possibility of our radiocarbon dates being exposed to outside elements that might throw off the dates. Right? They're actually quite measured in that, and they give us that information, which is great. Although
what do you guys think?
When I finish the paper, I'm skeptical that they've done that for the right reasons. They strike me as perhaps actually being a little weaselly. And the reason for that being is that at the end, when I get there, and the conclusions that they draw from this are said without any limitations on what they believe is happening. So we'll get to that in just a bit. So
Okay,
what's
we just
bad
gonna
about
talk
the
about
paper then?
I went through that Olivia Brown video where she did Graham Hancock's, and she didn't talk about a single detail. It was crazy. It was
Well,
absolutely
the answer
crazy.
is sort of everything else. I got to start with these figures, right? So when you read a journal article, especially one like this, it's a very data heavy article. It's got a lot of numbers in it. It's got a lot of stuff in it. So it's got a lot of figures. And at first they seem sort of exciting. You go to, well, look at these charts. We got graphs. We got pictures. Great. Except they're sort of nonsense. There's these figures are really confusing, right? And they're full of pictures of things. There's terminologies and text all over these, and
No,
names of things,
I was pretty
and
confused as
words with
well.
question marks next to them, which is a weird thing to put in a figure. They're very
That's fair.
complex and
That's fair.
confusing to the eye, and they don't tell any story. And in many cases, they're somewhat or entirely disconnected from the text of the paper. So normally when you have a figure, so an image or a table or a graph, it has to be really contextualized by the text. So the editor will place that in the article,
And that's
next
fair.
to
Actually,
the relevant section. And
okay, he's 9 minutes into his video and he's starting to make some absolutely excellent points that are getting more specific. This one is pretty abstract, but it's abstract in a way where he's pointing enough to specific examples. And since I read the paper, I know exactly what he's talking about.
to be able to be reading the text and see the figure and understand how they connect and understand everything in it. And some of these things in these figures are there, some are not. So there's a lot of stuff in these figures that are just, it makes it really hard to understand what they're saying. So when they say, oh, we got this artifact from this location, and then they've got trenches with these crazy names on them, I don't know where they came from. Just give me a map that shows me stuff, right? So that makes the paper really, when I said before, this paper is quite obfuscating for non-archaeologists, non-professionals. This is the sort of thing, it's actually quite difficult, even if you do have training in this stuff, to understand what the heck is happening in these figures and in this text. Now, it does remind me of something. In many cases, what we're looking at here is the same kind of communication style that we see in your sort of Facebook group photo of this thing.
Oh, come on, dude. Come on. He just called it
What I like to call this thing looks like that thing inference, which is where you've got, a statue of a guy with a beard in India, and you've got a statue of a guy with a beard in Mexico, and you put them next to each other and you say, look, don't those look the same? And the implication being that they must be somehow culturally connected, as if two people couldn't make statues with beards on them, right? So this is the same kind of structure we see here.
right.
Right,
He's
so
getting back into
continuing
the
on,
crappy abstract.
some other things that are really problematic.
Reel it in,
this
brother.
paper. I'm going to start with the geology one. So I'll warn you ahead of time that this is a place where I'm out of my depth to a certain extent. So I've relied on the views and the criticisms and thoughts of geologist friends and geoarchaeologist friends, and I'm
Dude. He's like, it's the academic equivalent of like my buddy said, like, oh yeah, trust me, bro. This is a trust me, bro citation moment. And he's, oh god.
I'm going to link in the description to this everything that I mentioned here. So there'll be several threads from Twitter on there that actually are really informative, including the ones I've written, but others as well. As well as I'll have a link to the original paper. You can go and see
That's
yourself.
what he means by friends.
In this case, I'm relying a little bit on those criticisms, and I'll let you read a little bit more about that. But if you get in there, what the geologists and geoarchaeologists that I know are saying about this paper is similar problems to what I am going to critique in the archaeology in just a second, which is that the basics of this analysis have real problems that should make us question the findings altogether. Even what they say they found, no matter the leap in logic that's going to come into the conclusion here about this buried pyramid, this so-called buried pyramid. But fundamental criticisms of the sampling techniques, how they actually took for instance, soil cores, how they looked at those soil cores and tried to identify which elements of them were related to what time period or what type of sediment. The coring itself was done in seemingly a really sloppy manner that probably introduced all kinds of bias, and the samples are probably totally botched in that sense. And they rely really heavily on these cores and the things they found in them to make the arguments they're going to make about the archaeology. The geology is really essential to understanding what happens in the archaeology later in their argument. So the fact that there are just simply fundamental problems here. The geology also comes into play a little bit with the archaeology, and I'll use that as a kind of a step off into talking about the archaeology problems in a couple of things that they argue are human made. They're anthropogenic, to introduce a term for you here. Anthropogenic just means something that was made or altered by humans, an artifact, right? So not just a geological factor in a site like a rock or a stone or sediment, but something that was done by humans. Now, sometimes those can be rocks or stones or sediments, right? Humans can alter the geology of a site, move things around. So you can have anthropogenic sediments or soils. You can have anthropogenic stones, right? A manuport is kind of a kind of artifact. It's just like a stone that somebody has moved. And of course, you can have tools that are simply made out of stones, so-called lithics. And those are, of course, anthropogenic because they've got obvious evidence that humans have altered them and handled them and used them for something, right? Whether that be something functional or something symbolic or religious. It can be anything, right? But anthropogenic is just this idea that an artifact has actually been created or altered by humans. It's really essential because if you don't have anthropogenic things, then you might just be looking at
Oh crap. Thanks, Jay Forte. Oh no. Oh, and there's a delay too. I suck. Thank you, everybody. So this freaking guy, man, like, how does this guy have 6,000 views on this video? Like, it makes me feel so much better about like doing YouTube because it's if this guy can do it, if he can get 6,000 views on a video that's as boring as this, then like, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm losing retention just playing the video. Yeah, there was higher retention when I was reading off of a research paper, which is crazy. But we're gonna keep watching it because this is probably where our answer is. It seems like this guy, while annoying, is probably going to be correct, but we'll confirm afterwards.
a geological strata. You might just be looking at something that's
Sorry, guys.
a time period when
It's
there
amateur
weren't
hour
humans
out here.
there doing anything. This is very important foreshadowing for later. The two things that they point out, they don't talk about artifacts hardly at all in this paper, but the two that they do point out is that some of these geological cores supposedly have concrete in them, what they're describing as concrete, which is supposed to be from human-made sediments in some of these older layers that the authors are arguing for. And the geoarchaeologists and geologists that I'm following have just so they're just not. There's no sign that these are made by humans. It's just normal stones, right? So
Okay.
kind of a
How can we
lack
even
of an
debate
ability
that?
to really identify anthropogenic and altered stones. The other is that single real artifact that they are claiming comes from these layers that date to these really deep horizons. The one artifact they really say comes from that is this lithic object, this stone object. They're calling the Kujang stone or Kujang stone. Apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. And it's meant to be. They use the language that it looks like a Sundanese dagger, which is again, going back to this thing about language and persuasive writing, that's a red flag bit of language there. You don't do that in archaeology unless you are attempting to actually suggest a real connection between this object and a Sundanese dagger or whatever it is. If you say this thing looks like that other thing, when you do that in your Facebook groups with your buddies, the implication is these things are connected somehow, not just by coincidence or chance, but by chronology, by culture, by technology. They are somehow actually linked to one another. right? That they're actually linked by some real cultural connection. And the authors do not do anything to actually do that. They don't say anything about whether that's true, whether they actually meant to imply that, or and if they did, what is that connection? Because these things are supposedly separated by many thousands of years. This Kujang stone, and
it's one artifact from that layer. That doesn't. I don't understand why there would only be one artifact. You're telling me they would have wiped the place clean except for this one spot?
and the Sundanese daggers have nothing to do with each other. But the implication, I think, here is that they are somehow connected. Right now, again, they may have done that accidentally. I have a suspicion this maybe is actually like a little bit accidental. This is maybe I'm giving too much credit to the author here, but this is my theory. This is my little pet theory that this was actually a little bit accidental. That these guys come from a world where this sort of inference is normal. That you simply say, yeah, it looks like this other thing, even though that's really misleading in an archaeological paper, because when you say something like that, again, the implication is always going to be that those two things are actually culturally connected, not simply that it just looks like a Sundanese.
What does this guy know about Indonesian culture? Is he just like blatant? Just blatantly speculating?
Dagger, not just a dagger, not just saying, hey, this rock kind of looks like a dagger. You could call it dagger shaped. I think that would be fine. It's the addition of a specific cultural reference that's really
we get it.
I think these guys might come from a world where that's so common that they may have just done that by a matter of course, not necessarily intended.
I bet he posted about it on Facebook too.
I have no way of testing whether that's true or not, but that's sort of my suspicion. Again, a little foreshadowing for later on. The last thing we'll say here about this Sundanese dagger-like stone is that, again, to me, I didn't think this looks like an artifact. I think now, I'm not a lithics expert. I'm not a rock guy, but I know what a polished stone tool looks like. Those are really common archaeological finds in just about every part of the world, and this does not look like anything I've ever seen. This looks.
Oops, I gotta move myself again. Yeah, no, that's not. It's weird.
Like a rock. Now,
it looks like it's. I mean, you get 10,000 stones. Maybe one of them ends up just looking like this. It does look like a handle. I don't know.
To be completely fair, it is a really cool rock. I will give them that. It's a very cool rock, and I think you could probably agree with it. It's a neat rock, but I do think it's just a rock. Sometimes it can be hard to tell, especially from a photograph, right, without actually being able to.
Yeah, I don't even know.
And they do offer some microscopic evidence of this. They show you some under microscopy photos of this thing, and those were not particularly convincing to the lithicists in my life. That they thought this was simply a natural stone. Now let's get into the actual the deeper problems with this paper, and the biggest are dating related. The authors are arguing that this site, which is a real site that has extremely cool stuff and is a really amazing archaeological site and is pretty old, it's thousands of years old, but the authors appear to have really wanted this site to be much older than that, and we'll see why in a minute. And so they make a case based on their geological surveys, which, as I've said, have problems, that there were layers, deeply stratified layers at this site that had void chambers in them. Now, geologists have been arguing that these are a really common feature in volcanic settings, and the site is built on a volcano. So it's probably a natural geological feature. But you know what? Test it. Why not, right? So the argument of the authors was perhaps these volcanic chambers were being utilized.
Impressive, JC, but I'll allow it.
Of people. We can find an older settlement at the site. Absolutely. Go to town. Test that. It's a cool, interesting archaeological theory, hypothesis. Why not? Let's test it. And so that's what they did. So they used these soil cores to get soil from deep down inside these volcanic void chambers. And some of that soil was organic rich. It was carbon rich. It had carbon material in it. So they used that to date those soils. So let's talk a little bit about radiocarbon dating. Now, I've talked about this extensively on this channel, and I'll have a link here that you can go and see a complete discussion that I had about radiocarbon dating. We'll call it complete, but a somewhat thorough discussion of radiocarbon dating. I'm also going to have a link out to the original Twitter thread that I wrote about this that kind of got me thinking about this, which is contextualizing radiocarbon dating. But to be really brief about it here, radiocarbon dating is used to date organic material. So carbon-based
Indonesia.
material. That's why they call it radiocarbon dating. What you're doing is you're dating the ratio of a couple of different carbon isotopes. One of them is C14, carbon 14. That's why it's called C14 dating. And you're looking at the ratio of those two, and you're measuring the breakdown of one of these isotopes into the other one. And carbon has a relatively short half-life, so you can use it for dating sites up to about 60,000 years old, which is relatively short compared to many radiometric dating techniques, but it's great for archaeology because that covers the vast majority of archaeological sites. If you got a site that's older than that, you have to use different dating techniques. But for the vast majority of archaeological sites, radiocarbon dating works great. And so they've used that here.
Oh, it was good.
Now, so range is not a problem, but we do have an issue here with material. As I mentioned, to date something with radiocarbon dating, C14 dating, you have to have carbon-based material. The way we do that in archaeology is preferably you want to date an actual artifact, right? Because this comes back to the problem we pointed out earlier, anthropogenic, right? I mentioned that was foreshadowing. Now, this layer here, there's a huge question. It's deeply buried, huge gap between this layer and the layers that have definite cultural material in them that are only a few thousand years old. And
there's a deep gap that they say is ancient soil fill.
And this layer, big old gap. So to argue that this is in fact part of the archaeological site, we need to prove that there's something anthropogenic happening here. You got to prove that there's human activity in there. Otherwise, it could simply be a geological layer. It could simply be just a layer of time when there's no humans around. Radiocarbon dating doesn't just date archaeological artifacts, it dates anything with carbon in it. So on a regular archaeological site, we're going to try and date an artifact itself. That might be seeds or nutshell from a hearth or a cooking fire, or maybe shells that we think somebody ate, or bones that have clearly been broken up by humans because they're cooking food and hunting and eating that food. Anything with carbon in it. Now, there are times when we can date an archaeological site using carbon-based material that isn't actually an artifact, right? So it can be just soils, and we can use that to sort of cap a site on the top and bottom. This is how you have to date with like potassium argon dating when you hear about like Lucy or something like that, or some hominid that's like 3.2 to 3.8 million years. The reason you have that huge gap is because they've probably used some form of dating technique, something like potassium argon dating, that dates volcanic layers of strata. And so what they've done is you can look on this on a stratigraphy and you can see they've got the 3.2 million layer and the 3.6 million or 3.8 million or whatever, and the fossil is in between, so they've dated it to that range, right? So you can do that with radiocarbon dating too, because you can date carbon-rich soils above and below an artifact or a cultural feature and say it falls in between those, right? You could do that. Or you could date artifacts that are things that you're not super sure if they're artifacts. Maybe you've got some charcoal, but the charcoal is inside like a feature, like maybe like a post mold that appears to have been burnt. So you can reasonably argue that that charcoal was burnt as a part of the burning of that post. Maybe that post is part of a structure, a house or something like that, right? So are we 1,000% sure that that charcoal is actually an artifact? Maybe not. It can be hard to tell that sometimes, but we can use that as a line of evidence and see if it gets confirmed by others to sort of check to see if that's an artifact, right? So it doesn't always have to be super obvious that you're in fact dating an artifact made of carbon, but there has to be close cultural spatial affiliation. There has to be some strong evidence that you are in fact looking at carbon that comes from the same time period as artifacts, as actual human-made stuff, right? You can't kind of go the other way around. You can't simply date material, get a date, and say, well, since we've got carbon from X number of years ago, that must be an archaeological site. It doesn't work like that, because you can have carbon that is simply in a geological layer and you're dating nothing. You're dating geology. You're learning something about the geology of the site, which might be interesting, but it doesn't tell you anything about the archaeology of the site. It doesn't tell you anything about humans. And that appears to be what's happened here. They have taken cores out of these deeply stratified layers and they've pulled them up, and they take soil that's carbon rich, and they've radiocarbon dated that soil, and it comes back to something like 16 to 24,000 years old. Now, if you had a site here that's 16 to 24,000 years old, that would be an incredible find, right? Just any evidence of human activity that long ago in Indonesia, that'd be amazing. It'd be an amazing find. Really cool site. Well, that would be nice, except it doesn't show that, because there's no affiliation between that carbon that's in those soils and anything actually archaeological, any sort of anthropogenic
Okay, wait, but
artifact.
the point is that the Unit 3, is he going to talk at all about, let me go back to the article. So the Unit 3, right? Layers of rock construction, Unit 3. Meticulously sculpted. Where's the evidence that it's sculpted? Oh, yeah, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. Oh, no, that's Unit 4. That's Unit 4. Sorry. Yeah. Huh. Where the hell? Unit 4, no data. Unit 3. Is Unit 3 the freaking soil, though? He's right. It's very confusing. I thought that I was just dumb, but it's confusing. Unit 3, weathered columnar and rounded rock fragments. Lack of organic matter. Sounds like it's probably a bunch of BS, guys. Unfortunately, it's not organized right. It's just confusing. Let's finish off this video.
Or features or soil changing, anything. It's just background noise, carbon in the soil, as far as we can tell. Again, they've done almost no testing here. They've taken a handful of tiny little geological cores out of this layer. Perhaps if they actually excavated these layers with a full-blown excavation, maybe they would find stuff. But
okay, but it's so far down, you'd have to destroy it to do that. So what are you talking about?
I need to make this really clear. There are no artifacts associated with these soil cores. There is no obvious evidence of anthropogenic activity, of human activity, of anything. So we have to assume that they are just dating geological soil strata, which again, could be interesting because it gives us that bottom cap on our data shaped pyramids and the reason and
okay. I mean, ultimately, I have to side with the neolib here. That he's probably right. It doesn't seem like they've really shown that. I'm gonna have to go back and go to that ancient apocalypse thing. But anyway, that's it for today. And I will talk to you guys soon. Any questions, jump in the Discord, reach out on Twitter. Bye, everybody. Oh my God. Bye, JC.